Chodesh Elul is a time where we start. We're a little late this year. It's already a weekend. We have more than a week, a couple of weeks to Rosh Hashanah, and we do certain things. One thing you all know we do: we blow the shofar, right? We blow the shofar every morning to remind us that the time by the Midbar they blew the shofar when Moshe went up to Har Sinai the second time, so they shouldn't make a mistake. So we blow it again, and wakes us up. Most people have the minute, like we do today, is to just blow a tashrat. Just blow a tashrat. Some places are a little more exotic. They blow the whole 30 koilos, the whole 10 koilos, tashrat, tarat. But we don't do that. Okay, we're going to start saying slichas also, and when we start saying slichas, there used to be a minhag that the Baal Tefillah, the daven slichas, would daven all the minyanim, and that would go override the aval even the aval, a guy's yortzeit or yortzeit Shiloh, but a guy that's in the year of Avelis, Shloshim, that they would daven for the Yomad, so slichas guy would knock him out. That's how it was. That's how the halacha is actually, but today we're not makbid on that for various reasons. One of the reasons is because he's not fasting. In other words, if the guy davening slichas used to fast, and if he was fast, then we'd give him the slichas to daven the whole day. But he's not fasting today anyway, so that's one reason. Other reasons why we don't do it, but in any case, that's coming up through. What I would like to speak about a little bit is halachas about tefillah, because Hagam were makbid on Yom Neiram, the special halachas we'll see soon of who's allowed to be about tefillah, who's not allowed to be about tefillah. But there's halachas that are all year long who's allowed to be about tefillah, who's not allowed to be about tefillah. And so could I to go through it a little bit? We get a little picture of who you're supposed to let go up to daven for the Yomad. Now, a lot of things we're more machmir on Tanis Kavua, which is the same halach as Shana Yom Kippur, as we'll see soon. So we'll just go through a little bit of it. So the halachas are in Chaim Nun Gimel. It says like this. They used to have, I don't know if any place still has like this, but they used to have a shliach tzibur kavua, right? There was a guy who went up, and he was hired, and he was the chazan. Right? He was the chazan. And sometimes not just for Shabbos and Yom Tov, sometimes it was even for the week he was the chazan. But they would hire a guy, and it was his chus. He was paid for it, and it was a very important job in the kehillah. And there's a whole shayla in Shulchan Aruch. If you only have money to hire one, either a chazan or a rav, which one do you hire? I won't say what it says there.
or your personal opinion.
So because without a chazan, they wouldn't be able to daven and lay and the whole business. I think by the Sfardim it's more of a thing than it is by the Ashkenazim today. But we'll see soon that today it's not as relevant, these halachas, because we don't generally have a chazan kavua, because most people daven by themselves. They come to shul to daven, but the shliach tzibur is not being moitzi them the Shemona Esrei. We have sidurim, people know how to daven, and they just do chazor sashatz. So it's sort of watered down the original halacha. But there used to be something called a chazan, a shliach tzibur, and they would have to look for the right guy to do the job. So it says like this. There's a few halachas. One of them is like this: a shliach tzibur tzorch sheyeh hagan. He has to be a proper person. Okay. Ve'ezo hagan. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a hagan? He has to be right to be about tefillah. What does it mean? She rekan me averis. He should be empty for averis. He shouldn't have any averis.
So who's that?
Where do we find such a person?
So how do you find such a person? So we'll see in a minute. And then it says v'shalai yotzel of shemra. Even if it doesn't have averis, but if it came out a bad name about him, I feel be al dusa even when he's young. When he was young, he was hanging around with the wrong crowd, and so not good. You can't hire him as a chazan. We'll see soon what it means. She unobvious, be unav merutza la'am, and he has to be merutza la'am. People have to want him. And we'll get back to that also. This was very important halacha. And he also has to be b'yeshel ni'im v'kol areb. He has to have a good voice. You want a guy to get up there, and nobody's going to enjoy listening to him daven. Nobody's going to come to daven. And he has to be roga likros Torah to be a miksuvim, which is less relevant today because he has to know how to read. So he should be flawless. Well, I say less relevant today. It is relevant. The guy has to be flawless, but today we read a lot of things we read inside and we know how to read, so it's less of a problem for a guy that knows how to read. But still, he has to be flawless. So that's the first. Then it says, if you can't find anyone that has all this, so then you try to find the best guy. Okay. Now we'll go to a guy that did Averis and things like that. But before that, just to give a little bigger picture here, it also says V'roishu big day shatz aruchim. The begadim, the clothing of the shliach tzibur should be long. Shlo yu raglav, his feet shouldn't be seen.
What shouldn't be seen?
His feet.
Oh, his feet.
Shouldn't wear short kapot, I guess, in those days. Today it would mean don't wear shorts. The shiloh, if anyone could wear shorts during davening, it's not so partial. I could daven in shorts. But for shliach tzibur, for sure, that's davening for the Yamud. It's not proper. It's a mission, actually.
No, painting I have shows, I was wondering, why were they wearing these long robes? Basically, like, to the ground.
Yeah, now, it became among the conservatives a reform at the time. They got it from, unfortunately, the other religion. It became a thing to wear black, right? Black chazan thing. So the whole tshuva, if a shul wants to institute to wear a black long robe for a chazan, whether you're mechuyev, I can't remember, whether you're mechuyev to, whether you're allowed to put it in. People want it. Is it a nisser? Is it not a nisser? Because that comes from the wrong places. But wear long clothing, that's halacha.
These were colorful. They weren't like one color.
Colorful was probably.
They were patterned and colorful.
Yeah. Okay. So the problem is if you have the job, especially in the old days of a shliach tzibur, was a very important job, and it says that if you have a shliach tzibur she'enei hagen, so your tefillas aren't going to be answered. So what's the point? You're going to send the guy up because he has a good voice. And he's not a proper, he's not a hug, he's not fit to be about tefillah. It says, Yemenei Toig Mi Yisrael, you're stopping that people won't get the yeshuas, they daven it, can daven for whatever they need, they're not going to get it. So it's important to have the right person up there to daven. Now, so there is a machloikus over here. The Magen Avraham says like this, just to be on the safe side for the beginning here. So we said, Mor says such a lashon. I hated them. This is talking about they sent up shliach tzibur she'enei hagen, not a proper shliach tzibur. So the Magen Avraham says, we'll see this a few times, that today everybody davens anyways their own Shemona Esrei. We're just sending up the chazan to end it off, to lead and end off. He's not really doing the major job that he needed to do in the old days. So he says that we're not medakta kol kach after a Shas Tagim today, because every yachid is shoifech nafshel Hashem. Every person can daven on his own. He doesn't need the shliach tzibur sitting there. So Mamela, even though it still has some importance, but it's not as
crucial.
Crucial, right? It's not as crucial. So if another guy gets up, guy's yard sites, you say, "What do you mean this guy's yard site? This guy I saw the other day, what he was doing." Okay, you don't have to say anything. I mean, unless he's mamish, but for Hestia, he's very we'll see soon. But otherwise, it's not as crucial because you're davening yourself anyways. Davening a tzibur, 10 people davening together. You don't need the shliach tzibur. He's just ending it off at the end. But the Kaf HaChaim says, what are you talking about? Kaf HaChaim says, that was only in the old days. That was before the Arizal came around. But once the Arizal came around, he says, once the Arizal came to town, and he showed us the Sisrei Torah, everything that's hidden there, that Chazoras Hashatz is not just for the people that never didn't daven Shemar Nesei, have to be Yotzei. Chazoras Hashatz is very important. It does its own thing. The first Shemar Nesei does one thing, and the Chazoras Hashatz does something else. So B'meila, if you don't have the Hashatz Hagin, you don't have that. So it's very important to still be medactic, like in the old days, that you should still have a proper Shliach Tzibur. So that's okay. Al pi halacha l'maisa, the halachas like the Magen Avraham, that we're not so medactic, but avodah is still proper to try to find the right one, especially on Yom Naran, where we're more careful. So kedai to know some of these halachas. Now it says like this: what does it mean the guy doesn't have averus? Okay, what does it mean he doesn't have averus? So there's two pshatim here. Rashi says it's a Gemara. Needs to be making averus. So Rashi says it means that he doesn't have chamas v'gezel in his house. He doesn't have stolen goods in his house. He's clean from. He's an honest businessman. His house is not with money that's not kosher money. That's what it means. He doesn't have averus. That's Rashi's pshat. The Rambam says Edi Avera, and not only that, the Rambam says. There's a big Rosh Rambam here. The Rambam says. This is Lashon Rambam. There shouldn't be in his children and his people of his household, his relatives, people who hang around him, Bal Avera. So he's knocked out through association. If there's someone in his house, the Rambam says, that's a Bal Avera, so he can't be the Chazan. Now we'll see some shuvas about this in a moment. But the Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring this halacha. It just says that he should be making min averis. But it's possible that for Yom Noraim, some place can bring down that for Yom Noraim that we would take that into account. A guy who's averis in the family, that we'll see to what extent we take it into account. But perhaps that's taken into account. That we shouldn't send them up to be the chazan. There's a Tshuva and Avnei Nezer actually over here. Tshuva and Avnei Nezer. Here, the Dvar Shaila, we got a Shaila, that there was Bali Tfilah Shel Rosh Hashanah, the 4 Bali Tfilah it seems. 2 of them were B'nai Torah v'Yerushalayim, and 2 of them were also B'nai Torah v'Yerushalayim. They were the same equal. I guess there was a question who's going to be the Davner. About Tfilah v'Yerushalayim, Kol Harav Yosef, and the second 2 even better. The better Chazanim, and they have a nicer voice. But there's a Pagam in the Mishpacha. What is the Pagam? Okay, Echad haya oiviv shoichet ubaydik b'shnei kfarim. Okay, the father was a shoichet ubaydik. There's an interesting halacha here, which is also not so relevant now, but there were those that were more makbid on it. There was a halacha that someone who's a shoichet, someone who shechts or baydik or checks animals, shouldn't be about tefillah, and actually if he wants to be about tefillah, here. He has to change his clothing before he comes to daven. Can imagine, it would be a good idea, right? And if he doesn't want to, then you could remove him from being the shliach tzibur. But it sounds like he's kosher to be a shliach tzibur. It's not a problem. It's just he has to make sure to change and clean up, as they say.
Get the smell of chicken off his hands.
But it seems that there were some kehilas that they were makbid not to send them up at all. Some of the Hasidic kehilas were makbid not to send them up at all. That they didn't like to. They should be shliach tzibur.
What's the reason?
I'm not sure. I couldn't find the reason straight out, but they wouldn't send them up. Now it could be the reason is because it's so hard to know if by accident sold treifus or something, I'm not sure, but they wouldn't send them up. But that wasn't his case. Here, that was okay. But the problem was like this: that this guy's father was a shoichet ubaidik, and two rabbanim removed him from his post because they didn't like the knives. The knives weren't sharp enough, and they said this guy shouldn't be shachted. So this guy had no problem. He went to a different city, Medina's Pricing, and there he shachted, and they allowed him to shacht over there.
Why did he just sharpen the knife? He's in trouble.
Huh?
Sharpen the knife, it's easier to travel.
Today's knives are quite sharp, but in the old days, it was much harder to keep the knives sharp.
Or could have had a nick.
Especially if it gets very sharp, and if it gets very sharp, it's easy to get a nick. And the truth is, this is a very fascinating point, which he alludes to very, very slightly. But one of the big machloksim among the Litvaks and the Hasidim and the Misnagdim, one of the big battles in Europe was over the knives of the Shechita. Because the Litvisher would use dollar knives.
Which kind?
Dollar. The Litvisher, the
Not as
Misnagdim
sharp.
would use not a sharp knife, a little dollar. And they held it was better, it was sharp enough to shacht with, but they held it was better because you wouldn't get any nicks. And the Hasidim came and they said that no, it has to be extremely, extremely sharp. There are stories of certain rebbes that got sick from their lungs because the people keep on sharpening the knives and the pieces will go in the air. Not the knives like we have today, surgical blades. But they were very, very makbid on sharp, and therefore, once they were makbid on very sharp, there was very big chashash of nicks. Sometimes very hard to catch the very small nicks. It was a battle that ripped apart the country, because when they came in and they said you have to have sharper knives, they passed these sheikhim and these sheikhim. This was one of the non-spoken about battles between the Misnagdim and but it was probably one of the big ones.
But part of it has to do with who's making the knives.
Well, everybody had their own knife, and they had to keep it sheikhid. And the halacha is the sheikhid has showed a knife to the Rav before he shechted. That was the Rav's job.
Because
the blade would call them in and check their knives.
And who prevailed in that machlok? Who prevailed in that machlok?
I don't know how it come out at the end. It was a split kehilas. That was part of the split of the kehilas of the Misnagdim and the Hasidim. Besides the nusach of davening and anything else, it was a big one. So Shik alludes to it. He says, "Nirali." So the problem was that this guy's father was dumped, so to say, by two rabbanim for being he was dumped by two rabbanim for shechting, and the question is that a pagam in the mishpacha? Is that a pagam in the mishpacha that this guy shouldn't have for the Yavit now? You hear that? Now he says something else. Also, they had a brother. They had a brother that went off the derech. Besides the sheikhtim, that the father was a sheikhet that was bounced out twice and set up somewhere else, there was a brother went off the derech, but their voices are better. So who should they put up as the chazan? That was a shayla sent to Rav Nezer. So Rav Nezer says, "Nirali sheyikhu oisam shekolam arev." You should take the ones that their voices were better, even though the brother went off the derech, and even though that the father was bounced. He says, "Why?" Vade after tefillah sadik ben sadik nishmas yosef. So this is a concept which we didn't really get into. There's two issues here. There's one issue, there's a pagam in the mishpacha, somebody's family is off. And there's another issue, even though that we'll see, we're not really so makbid on that today, we'll see why. But there's another question. If let's say the guy's a tzaddik ben Russia, his father was a Russian, and his father was in Russia, and so we know the halacha. The Gemara says that a tzvila sadik ben sadik is nishma before a tzvila sadik ben Russia. Yichus works in this case. Sadik ben sadik has a sort of a direct line for tefillah, so we send them up. So if a father is a different issue. So if he's a brother, or a son, or somebody that he has a problem with, that's off. Okay, that's a question of pagam mishpacha. But if it's excuse me, excuse me.
Do this outside.
Excuse me, just outside. So I'm a little sure. So, but if you have a tzaddik ben Russia where the tefillos maybe are not going to be nishma as bad, so there's a mile of having a tzaddik ben tzaddik. So he says, so even though v'adei tefillah tzaddik ben tzaddik nishmas yoser, so he says, who said the father's not a tzaddik? The fact that he was removed twice from being a shoichet over here. So he says that the fact that he shechted in the other city after he was removed, he says not so bad.
So
he says
Tzaddik ben Tzaddik is the Tzaddik.
The son of a tzaddik.
Son.
Yeah. So he says that Yedua Inyan Ashchazas Sakinim was different from different countries, one from the next. Everybody had their own standards on the sharpness of the knife. Asher b'Medinas Lita, by the Medinas Lita, Mishtamshim, they use these knives. And we would not have allowed it. L'chatchila, it was a we would not allow it l'chatchila, but Medina's price and there are people that use it. So he's kosher. And Muslims don't have imuma, they do love imuma. If that's how they paskin over there, we paskin like this over here, that's how they paskin over there, he has a right to go there and shecht. So therefore he's not considered, he's not a tzaddik ben tzaddik. So as the fact that his father was removed twice over here, and he went to shecht over there, but since we could cut slack for that. It's not the the problem that he has a brother. So he says like this: after a Rambam Kosev, the Rambam says any of the kroivim shouldn't be a balavera. So he says, "Vade kavanosai only those that sheyachol leichichum lachzirim b'tshuva." It's only referring to people that you could have directed their actions and brought them back to tshuva. So he says that someone that you couldn't control, you're not responsible. You're not responsible, and therefore it doesn't stop him from being a Baal Tefillah on Yomim Neyram.
But controlling what sense?
What?
What does he mean controlling?
I don't know, it's very unclear. It's very unclear. So we'll see in a minute. We'll see. He says that, he says also could be one of the reasons is because you cover over for them. Sometimes you have a family member that's doing wrong and you try to sort of cover over for them and, cover over their sins. So he says, but here we're talking about people that are Yerushalayim. They're not being, people that are Yerushalayim, they're not covering over, they're not, trying to be machapa on the Averis. So, of course, they're going to be Baalei Tefillah. He says, and of course he brings morale that there's no chayva b'shvil achiv. A person's not responsible because of his brothers for sure. So father and a son, you could decide, but the brother, there's no question you're not responsible for. So therefore he says no issue. So this is actually, a lot of places can say this today, that we're not as makbid on this today, because in today's day and age, it's very hard to say that the person is responsible for the sins of even their children, parents, brothers, siblings. It's an out-of-control world, and it's very hard to really hold someone at fault for this. So it's not necessarily an issue. Having said that, there is an issue if there's something that's really a pagam, like something that's way off, like someone within the community that's really doing something that should be called out. and people aren't calling it out, and it's being kept undercover, there could be such an issue of a pagam mishpacha. But generally speaking, it's not considered necessarily an issue today. But there are tshuvas and shuvas about this question of if you have a family member. That's it. Now, what comes even more complicated is like this. See in a moment. So that's the first halacha. So you got to find a Baal Tefillah that's a Yerushalayim and he doesn't do Averis.
Right, the problem, I mean, how do you have these discussions? You launch immediately into Lashon Hara for the system to work, right?
Oh,
I heard his brother was crook. How do you make this work?
Yeah, how do you do this? We'll see in a moment. We're going to see in a moment. It's getting complicated. Hang in there just a little longer. So it says like this. The halacha says like this. The halacha is like this. So we said two things. We said also someone that a shein ruah came out b'yaldusai. Now, a guy that came out when he was younger, he was doing he wasn't on the right path. So Mishmur says, even though we know he did tshuva, afilu hachi ein lam noisel lechatchila l'shatz. So there's a big difference of appointing someone in the beginning or removing someone that's already a shliach tzibur. So appointing someone up front, there he has to have a clean slate, a total clean slate. So Mishmur says that even if he did tshuva, we still don't accept him. Now, most poskim are mekel on that, but again, that's for all year. But for Yom Narayim, this is not so simple. The guy to put him up l'chatchila, but he was a Baal Averis and he did tshuva, so it's a question whether you should put him up l'chatchila and whether he could do it. So the Moshe Sternbach and the tshuva, he says we have to take this also into context of today's day and age. He says that that's talking about a person who was brought up in a frum community, and then he did something off. But a person that didn't have that background, and now becomes Baal Tshuva, Matov Manoim, Adrabah. There's nothing wrong, and l'chatchila he could go up and he could appoint him even l'chatchila to be a shliach tzibur.
How do you have a person who never did no Aveira?
It's not talking about a guy. So that's the question. What kind of Aveira are we talking about? Guy did Aveira and did tshuva. We all do Aveiras and do tshuvas. Okay,
and what date are we talking these conversations?
What date?
1500s, 1600s?
No, even today.
No, I'm...
Safer.
Mishabura, Mishabura lived in the 1900s.
Okay.
Like that. So, what kind of Aveira are we talking about? That's also an excellent question. So now, I saw that from a Moshe, see the Mishabura is not Mashma, it's Mashma any Aveira. So it's Mashma in the Shulchan Aruch, we're talking about Yotzel shein ruah. Shein ruah means that he was doing something which is off the books. He was hanging out with a goya or something, had a relationship with a guy, something which was these kind of things which a shein ruah comes out, bad name comes out. The shein ruah doesn't come out, the guy accidentally, did something, or even on purpose, he did an aveira and tshuva. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something where shein ruah came out on the person, so that's that would be an issue. It says over here, and this is relevant even for Rosh Hashanah, someone who went Lodin Ber Kais, someone who went to a non-Jewish court, is possible to daven for the Yomid. It's possible to daven for the Yomid. So the Mishabur says, if the guy stole money, in other words, if he went to non-Jewish court and won the case, and if from Bezin he would have lost the case, so then he's a Ganev. It's Pasha that he can't daven for the Yomid. But even a guy who was right, and he would have won in Bezin anyways, but he went to court, so he's possible from davening. He's possible from davening for the Yomid. Possible from davening for the Yomid. So this is l'chatchil to send someone up, even if he did tshuva. But the question is, if a guy's already a chazan, and now they want to remove him, so there it's much more difficult. The guy's already a chazan, and they want to remove him from being a chazan. It says like this: "Ve'ein misalkan oisai, ein misalkan chazan nosan unless you find a psul." Ve'in misalkan I say mishum linen ba'alma, just because you hear, you hear people talking. Because Yatzel B'Shem Shenitfasim and Akusas, he was caught with a guy, having a relationship with a guy. I Shemasu Adam, he gave it a person. He was moister to the Malchus, so he used to tattle to the Avil. But that's, if you have Adam, then you remove it. But just for a coil that comes out, it's not enough to, once a guy has his position, it's very hard to remove him. So there's all kinds of chuvas, so we're not going to get into the details of it, but the different kinds of coils that maybe you could remove him are called the light pasik. In other words, when do you remove a person from their position when some not such good shmua is coming out about the guy? So this is a point of discussion in the Paiskim. In other words, if you have witnesses, no question you can remove him. But if you have, you don't have witnesses, you can't remove him. If it's just a coil, but it could be a coil like pasik, a coil that keeps on coming, and it comes from different sources, and there's some kind of verification, even though we don't have witnesses. It could be that's enough to remove him.
Come back to Michael's issue.
What?
But the Lashon Hara.
You have to make a bezdin and check it out.
We're talking here an employee of the community, someone who's paid by the community.
Yeah, this applies not just to a shliach tzibur. This applies also to a rav. It could be a person in position. You can't just remove a guy, but if there's something coming out against them, then you have to have a proper din on it to figure out what to do.
But like in a place like this, where they ask volunteers to lead the service during the Hagim, and it's more like on a volunteer basis, is it so strict to remove them?
No, they
so
pay
now
them.
here's where it's practical today, okay?
Everyone's paid.
Here's
but
where it's
they
very
donate it
practical
back.
today. So these halachas, okay, hopefully, guys disappointed, hopefully it doesn't happen, but there's a halacha like this. The halacha says that the halacha says that here it doesn't just read it for you, so I have it right. You could stop a person from being a chazan. Afilu yochid. The Mechaber says like this: Afilu yochid yochal la'akav loyme any rights you should plan to be a chazan. Okay, they're having a discussion in the shul. Who's going to be the chazan? And a guy raises his hand and says, "That guy? No way. He didn't be the chazan there." So the Mechaber says, I could stop him from being a chazan unless they were ready, agreed. Once they already agreed to be a chazan, I want to knock him off. I can't knock him off. Then you need a ready, like we said before. You have to have Adam. You have to show something was wrong. You can't just knock him off. But if a yachid could be one guy, it could mean a minority. A minority opinion can't knock off a chazan because they don't want the guy once he's already elected. But before he was elected, one guy could get up and say, him, I don't want him to daven.
You say elected or hired?
Could be elected is enough. So then there's a question. Let's say they hired him for a year and the year's over, and they want to rehire him, so then it's starting again. So a yachid could go say, I don't want him to be. So now the Ramah says, wait, there's a clause here. That yachid has to have a valid reason, which he has to explain to the Tuvei Ya'ir, the board members. He would have to explain to the board or executive, whoever is considered the Tuvei Ya'ir. And if it's a valid reason, they have to listen and they can't send him up. Bimhu Soinai, if I hate the guy, I could be Moicha Koyim Sheskim, that's also good enough reason. You hear this? If I hate the guy, I could say I don't want to go. Why? Because the halacha is that he's your shliach tzibur, and he has to be moitzi you. You hate him, he hates you. You know, it's a two-way deal here. So he's not going to be moitzi you. So you can't have him in a place where you don't like the Baal Tefillah. Now, just you have a 700 membership shul. I can't. One guy says this guy. So Zok Magen Avram. Zok the Magen Avraham that way. This halacha doesn't apply today. Because if you do this today, there's nobody to be able to get up for the oven. So you can't do that unless there's a valid reason why you have, and then you'll be able to go to the Tuvei and explain the reason why you feel that it's not proper to be the chazan, and if it's a good reason, they have to listen. But if not, then you can't, just because you don't like the guy, that doesn't apply today. But the concept is true. And why doesn't it apply today? The Magen Avraham says for the same reason we said before. Because in the old days, the guy was moitzi you. So if there's one guy in the kehillah, he's a paid member in the kehillah, and he can't get along with this guy. Maybe he has a good reason why he can't get along with this guy. But he can't get along with this guy. You can't hire him as a bal tefillah. But today, well, he's not being moitzi you anyways, so it's not the end of the world. So we can let the guy go up. That's what Magen Avraham says. But the shaila is the Baal Tekeya. The guy that's blowing the shofar, Zok the Chavas Yar, the guy that's blowing the shofar, he is moitzi you. And therefore, if the guy says, that Baal Tekeya, I hate his guts, and he hates my guts, and there's no way that he could be the Baal Tekeya, according to the Chavas Yar, you're not allowed to hire him as a Baal Tekeya. The Shari Tshuva is chaylik. The Shari Tshuva says, Baal Tekeya is not a tzibur thing. It's each individual. It's just like I'm moitzi Kiddush. I mean, it happens to be the shul has one guy blowing, and he's moitzi 100 different people. But it's not a tzibur. It's only something which is a din tzibur, like a shliach tzibur that is chazor sashatz, that one guy could be ma'akiv. But if it's a Baal Tekeya, it's one guy being everybody's moitzi each other personally. So go get your own guy to blow your shofar if you want. You can't stop the shul from hiring the guy. But the Chavas Yar says no. If I don't like the guy, I could make him a chah, and he can't be the Baal Tekeya. So even today, that's an issue. So the guy's blowing you Baal Tekeya, you got to make sure everybody likes you. As I state, that's why it says in the halacha by a chazan, you should be merutzel hakol. You should be a person that people like. Because if he's not a person that people like, he's in the wrong job. That's the first chiddush. The Chavas Yar puts in another point. He says, and not only that, if by a shliach tzibur, and he holds even by a tkiyah shofar, and back then by shliach tzibur, and today by Baal Tekeya, he says, and if there's one guy that you don't want to be moitzi, nobody's yotze. That's the halacha by shliach tzibur. The reason why one guy can be makav, it's not just to be careful for this one fellow that he won't be yotze his chazor sashatz because he can't get along with Baal Tefillah. If the Baal Tefillah is not moitzi one guy, he's not moitzi anybody. Nobody's yotze. So therefore, if the shliach tzibur gets up there for Shemon Esrei, and there's one guy says, this guy, I don't want to be part of my tefillah, then nobody's yotze, and that's why we're so makbid, even if one guy. And the Chavas Yar says the same thing as Baal Tkiyah Shofar. If there's one guy I don't want to be moitzi, so then the whole thing is off. Zok the Chavas Yar, amazing thing. He says that very nice. That's all if shaloi kadin. But let's say the shul's having a hard time with membership, so they come out with a proclamation as follows. They come out that whoever doesn't pay the membership by Rosh Hashanah is not yotze from the Tkiyah Shofar. It'll work. Huh? You say you want to come to shul, you're welcome to come to shul. But the chazan is not being moitzi. The Baal Tekeya is not being moitzi, the person that didn't pay his membership in full. Whatever the agreed upon amount. They do this in tuition in school. You don't pay school, they're sending a kid home. You don't have an agreement with the tuition committee. You don't have agreement with the, what do they call it, committee here? Then, obligations committee. You're not yotzi, it's Kiyah Shofar. Zok the Chavas Yar, Hagam, we said, if you're not moitzi one person, everybody else is yotzi. Is not yotzi either. Here it's different. Here, faket, that's the takonas hatzibur. And if there's a takonas hatzibur, then faket. If the shliach tzibur wants to be a nice guy and say, I'm going to be moitzi everybody anyways, it doesn't work. You can't do that. He has a mandate from the Tuvei from the Rav, whoever it is, that these people should not be moitzi. He says that they're not yotzi, that's Kiyah Shofar. How do you like that? I hope the people aren't listening to the share. You never know what's going to happen. And it may be relevant if you have someone that's not acting properly, and you want to try to get him in line. Other poskim don't like this so much, but this is the Chavas Yar's opinion as far as being moitzi other people. So if one guy gets up and says that I have an issue with the chazan, so he has a right to be moicha, according to the Shulchan Aruch, because the guy's becoming a shliach tzibur. As we said today, it's not as relevant that, but if he has a good reason, you can't send him up. You can't send him up.
Well, like if a person says, I have an issue with the shliach tzibur, and the shliach tzibur replies, no, but I don't have any issue with him. So it's not that the shliach tzibur...
Yeah, so you're asking a good question. It's very unclear in the halacha why we say, if I say I hate the guy, then that guy can't daven. We assume he doesn't like you back, but it's not so clear like that. Not so clear what the time is, but it would seem that usually goes two ways. If it doesn't go two ways, it could be if I don't like him, maybe I don't want him to be, might see me.
But you can't really send the person out on account of that, can you? You can't tell him to leave the shore.
The single individual, I can't tell him to leave. He has a right to be here.
Yeah.
So it says here, if after the shliach tzibur was hired, and one guy gets up and says, I don't like this guy, he can't daven for me. So it says the shliach tzibur, like you're saying, it says the halacha is, if he's already hired, you can't bounce him out.
Yeah.
So he says, that he's going to remove. I'm going to remove my. The shliach tzibur, it's his obligation to say, I'm going to remove my hatred of this guy from my heart. So the chazan has an obligation to make sure he's
forgiven.
He forgives everybody and he likes everybody, even if the other guy hates him, like you're saying. So that's once he's hired, and you can't remove him, but he still has an obligation to make sure that he's merutza with the kahal. Very important thing.
And we're all supposed to do that before Rosh Hashanah.
The person should do it anyway. Down with a minion, we said from the Arizal, the person's not considered a minion if you don't like the guy next to you. You're two individuals. It's besides. But you could have a big minion. It could be there's 100 people. So the 10 guys I like, I have a minion. The other guys I don't like. But the shliach tzibur, he can't get away with this.
If he has a minion they don't like.
So how does that work with duchani? Let's say there's an enemy in the shore between the kohen.
Yeah, the kohen also. Kohen has to like everybody. The person in position doesn't have the ability not to like people. And if he doesn't, then he shouldn't be in the position. That's the rule of thumb. If you want to not like a guy, resign.
There's like, and what if you're aware of a situation with one of your
congregants that's very sticky and complicated and messy.
A kohen goes up there, and there's someone I know should never go up.
You have to deal with it, but you can't hate the guy.
Do you walk? No.
You could yell at him. It doesn't mean don't say the guy's not allowed to yell at the guy. But I just want to say another interesting point before we end here. It says here like this. You ready for this one? Soine Mishu, it's Allah as Ramah. Mishu soine l'shliach tzibur. If you don't like the chazan, now we're talking about the chazan that's laning, the balkaira that's laning. Lo yala l'sefer Torah k'shekayra ha'techacha. We're going to read the techacha next week, right? So you have twice we have the techachas in the Torah's Kanim, and you have it now in the barn. So if the guy, if you don't like the chazan, and the assumption is again the chazan's not going to like you, so you get an aliyah, the techacha. Okay, those days they gave it out to whoever, and you get the aliyah the techacha, and the chazan is going to have you in mind every time he's saying Yakcha Hashem should hit you. Going to have you in mind, and the kolam might work. So therefore, you should not go to the Sefer Torah when they call it. You should not get up for that aliyah. And this opens up a whole machlokes here. This opens up a whole machlokes. What do you mean you're not going to go up? You got called up in aliyah. The Gemara says it's called mevaza the Sefer Torah, not going up when you're called up for an aliyah.
Once in 5 years, you got your chance.
You have to go out. You have to get out, go out before he calls you up. You have to know he's going to call you up and get out before he calls you up. Because once he calls you up, it's got some machlokes with you. I know this guy doesn't like me. I don't like him. I don't want to get up for the aliyah. It's dangerous. So I tell you, this is maybe the reason for the minhag that we let the Baal Korah get the aliyah. Right? We always give the aliyah to the Baal Korah because he's not going to hate himself. But you see the concept that that if the Balkari, the ones that's laning, doesn't like this guy who gets Aliyah, then it could affect him. It can affect the person. Some say this is only in Devarim where it's a singular lashon. In Teres Kahanim where it's a lashon plural, so it's not going specifically on the person. But either way, you can't. The Chalal Balkari can't have anybody in mind, even if he's not being called up for Aliyah when he's laning this. But for the guy getting called up for Aliyah, it could be a sakana for him. That's the halacha. So you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful over here. The halacha applies the other way also. The Bechis Yosef says that when you read the brachas, you also shouldn't have the guy in mind. Even though you like the guy got Aliyah you like, and you want to give him a bracha, so you have in mind when you're laying the brachas. It's also not proper. The point of the brachas is that you're laying from the Torah and you're giving the brachas. You have this, not a specific person in mind for this thing. So that's the deal here with the guy getting up to daven. Al Kaponim, he ends off over here from the Shulchan Aruch HaRav. It's a machlokes. We said before if it's better with tzaddik ben tzaddik or a tzaddik ben rasha. So he says even though the Gemara says it's better to have a guy that's a tzaddik ben tzaddik davening, but nonetheless some say fakert. You have a shliach tzibur from a low down family, and he steiged and became a talmid chacham and he became a tzaddik. And he's a anav and faket. The Gemara says that the reason why David HaMelech's melucha lasted over Shaul's is because it says that every parnas halatzibur should have a kubah shel shrotzim, should have a necklace of shrotzim hanging on his neck, because it'll keep him in check. You're not so great yourself. You have a past, or sometimes a person that has a not so glorious past is a more humble person, and that person's tefillah will be listened even better. So it's better than a shliach tzibur of mishpachas miyucheses that doesn't have all these milas. So everything really could be taken into account. That's the deal. So upon him, at the end of the day, the ikar is that a person gets davening for the Amud even all year. Should do tshuva before he gets up to daven for the Amud, because everybody has certain averos. And the Chadim Shloyechta, and the frat if it's an averim for semes, guy's father passes away, that he wants to daven for the year, he should think to himself, maybe he should change his ways, because he's a shliach tzibur now. He's a shliach tzibur for the tzibur, and Hagam, we don't go and start verifying everybody's problems and this and that. We don't do that today, unless there's something that stands out and there's an issue. But we don't do that today. The frat for Yom Noram, it's well known, anyone that's getting up, whether it's davening or with shofar or anything, should do a little tshuva before, and hopefully our tefillah should be niskabel.
Amen.